I knew it. I've already been told this, Anthony Jones.
All right. The real answer is, yeah, if you share your work and send it on a digital, in a digital way, like you've just done did. The problem is that nobody really checks their emails as much as you would think. And not only that, no response doesn't just necessarily just mean that they don't like your work or they don't want to hire you. Maybe they can't. There's a real possibility that they just don't have enough resources. Either they just don't have enough money, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a real thing. Like, not every studio is like Blizzard and right, or they can just throw money around. And even those studios, they just don't throw money around. They hire people who they think that are going to bring value to their studio.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's all normal. It's like shooting fish in a barrel type of situation, where you just got to keep shooting, right?
Yeah.
Or like another better analogy would be, casting fishing lines, right?
Yeah.
Until one of them like sticks to one of your lines. I think the problem that a lot of people have when they first start out, like that no response just like fuels their insecurities. And you should just not let that kind of stuff fuel your insecurities,
Yeah.
Yeah, because yeah, you're just not going to get response every single time. Now, the best way to go about this, which unfortunately you're just going to have to wait because of the circumstances that are going on that are now becoming plentiful, is to just generally go out and make friends, right? You can still do that. I mean, I don't think it's entirely unlikely, but what I mean is like you going out, to events and networking. And even if like you go online, you could probably do it online and go to social forums, like art forums and stuff. Like DeviantArt has plenty, and Facebook has Facebook groups. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I was
You
supposed
got
to
to be
go to
creative.
Lightbox.
Yeah, that would have been a good one. But even Lightbox is too big.
Yeah.
So maybe like Lightbox to me is like if you're already pretty good, you're gonna do really well. It's gonna be a huge advantage. If you're kind of good, it might be a lucky break. And if you're just good, then you're going to be going against all the other people that are there, so it's going to be very hard. But what events like these still do, or events like that still do, as you already experienced, is you just get great insight and you make real meaningful connections.
Yeah.
And those connections, if you manage those, like manage your relationships with people, take care of people, add a lot to your investment of your career, right? Because when you then become pretty good, they might help you give you that first break. And when you then become very good, people start coming to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So the answer is ultimately it's the same with art. Like this is a part that I don't think people respect enough. Right? It's just that it's just like the art part where you have to like go out and do stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so for me, I was very lucky because the time that I did this, nothing was going on in the world, which in hindsight, I would have never imagined this type of stuff would have been happening, but now I can see how lucky I was. Also, I see how lucky I was in other stuff that I already knew. I still know because I live in California. I'm California native, you know, so
Yeah.
I was already familiar with a lot of the industry and what was available, you know.
Yeah. I
But
did look around here. I'm in Wisconsin. I'm all the way on the other side. Um, but
sure.
yeah, they're mostly like commercial stuff that rather than like entertainment. So uh,
But you get
but
my point, though. Like,
yeah, yeah, for sure,
like
for sure.
one of the things that one of the things that I always try to do is just remind people that this sentiment that the world's not fair is true,
Mhm,
you know. But it's not so much. It's like there's this quote from one of the Rocky movies. Is one of my favorite quotes, and it's more about like this idea of like it's not about recognizing that the world is not fair. It's like what do you do with that information? Like how do
mhm.
you deal? And in that movie, he makes this like he has this talk speech with his son, and he's just like, "It's not how hard you, it's not how hard you take the hit, or sorry, it's not how hard you hit. Life is always gonna hit you hard. It's about
Yeah.
how you get back up. That you can get knocked down, get back up." He's basically saying, "This is my favorite quote because it's so true.
Mhm.
That it's essentially more about getting back up rather than getting hit. He's
Yeah.
like, life is always gonna keep hitting you. He's like, that's never gonna stop happening.
Mhm.
You know, it's about how you deal with that." And that always resonated with me. That has always stuck with me. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
and I think that that has helped me because I've gone through some real hard stuff in my life, and that's the kind of thinking that really helps me out. And it's more of a progressive way of thinking too. And what I mean by progressive is like it's it's an additive type of behavior, right?
Mhm.
Versus subtractive. And I was talking earlier like politics, for instance, and I was just talking to my wife when I was eating dinner, and because I guess one of her cousins is like a Trump supporter, and she was just like freaking out about it. She's like, I can't believe it. And but she was telling me too, like all of her family members like just ripped her apart. And
Oh,
and I was like, well, that's unfortunate because family, you guys should actually just call her and talk it out. Because honestly, um, that kind of stuff actually can sometimes push people the other
give them
direction.
away.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
might actually make them double down versus just talking to them. I remember I had a real good conversation with somebody um, about climate change, and I convinced them that they were wrong about it. Like,
Mhm.
because they thought it was like a hoax, and I convinced them that it wasn't. But it was via conversation, not like texts conversation, comment conversation, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, so she was talking, like she was talking about her cousin, and her cousin's like a Trump supporter and all this stuff. And it's just like, I was trying to explain to my wife that I find that people who listen to Trump, he speaks to them. There's something about that's going on in their life that he speaks to, you know?
Mhm.
I need to turn off my Slack. Hold on.
Uh-oh, we saw something.
I
Gotta
don't think it
cut
was
off.
anything important. But it's more of it just annoys me because then I want to go see what they said.
Uh,
It's actually kind of dangerous at the work, like from home, where you have your work in your pocket. If you know what I mean, like you're just constantly, like
yeah.
instead of getting text messages about like the latest thing that Kim Kardashian did, you're getting like messages from your coworkers, like, "Oh, dude, I need to get to work." There's something different about that. Makes you work harder. Anyway, the point I'm making with this stuff with my wife's cousin is that people have these things that are like they're on their mind, and if someone can speak to that and someone can like talk to these things, they react to it. It's like based off of this same point of like this insecurities and these types of like things that they just don't know. And because life is unfair, because of all these circumstances that are out of their control, they like to think that they have control over like the,
Hmm.
the the things that they like and the things that they know.
Yeah,
And I think what makes Trump really appealing to many people is that he's very simple.
that's
He has
true.
he's very, very simple. He's like, all your problems are because of them. And then it's like,
I,
as soon as you do that and you feel like there's some truth to that, then it removes the fault on your own, right?
yeah.
And so that's what I love about that rocket quote, is that it keeps the ownership of your life and your circumstances on your plate,
Yeah.
regardless of how bad it can be. And don't get me wrong, there are things where it's really, really bad.
Hmm.
Okay. And there's
Hmm.
some justifiable opportunity to be complaining, you know? But I even think when people make these complaints, they have to lead with action. So a good example of this is that I see like a lot of like I see this one video where this guy was screaming at these kids, right? I'm not sure what he was screaming about. And these protesters, all they were saying, all they were screaming back at him was that I can't breathe, right?
Hmm.
And I'm watching the situation and I'm thinking to myself, there's no winners in this situation. This is an unactionable situation because that guy doesn't give a fuck that they're saying I can't breathe. Clearly, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they don't care to listen to any of what he is saying, even if they are justifiably on the right side of the argument. You know,
Yeah, that's
to me,
true.
that's really sad because it's like this is an opportunity to remind this individual of the humanity of the situation.
Hmm.
And going back to this example of my wife's cousin, you know, she's grasping at straws, man. She's just like constantly fighting. Remember how we were talking about it in class just moments ago about like, you know, justifying the death of this person, like
Yeah.
finding reasons, and just can't focus on the simple fact that a cop just can't be killing people in the streets regardless.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
it angers you, especially when you see them give water. Remember that one kid who went in and walked into a church and killed, I believe it was like 5 black people who did
Yeah.
literally nothing, right? And they like the cops took him to get a hamburger because he was hungry.
Yep.
Now, I will be clear. I think that that's the kind of stuff that should happen. That you should feed the criminals. You should take care of the criminals so that they can go to court and serve their time justly, right? You should actually uh, give the criminal an opportunity to get trialed, right? And then fuck their life over after we justifiably put them behind bars. Because you don't want cops to be in charge of the murdering too, right? There's a
Yeah.
reason why we have a system. And it makes you even more angry when we see that when the cops are doing that, and which I believe they should, regardless of how heinous the crime is, you know, I might feel differently if it was my own family members, right? But I think objectively speaking, this is what you want to do.
Hmm.
Like we need to agree that there's one type of behavior has to be consistent. And so anyway, but whenever whenever all of her family were attacking her, I felt like there might have been also another missed opportunity there because you're feeding into her insecurities, and now she's doubling down.
Yeah, that's
And so,
true.
and so, getting back to kind of what I'm saying to you is that like this might be happening too, right? Like you might be doing this thing indirectly. You might indirectly be putting this external factor on your own shoulders, where you literally have no control. You have no control over a studio hiring you. You just don't. You know. But what you do have control over is the quality of your work, right? And the people that you know. I always talk about this. That is all I can do. And that's all I ever focus on. That's why I'm a people person. That's why I'm a charmer, right? I talk to people all the time. I make friends. You know, I make friends with my students. I'm really nice to all the people who take my class, and I respect you guys and care about you guys, right?
Hmm.
Uh, those very same people then recommend me to other people, And then those people took my class and so forth and so on. And there's been cases where some students of mine have gotten so good that they got opportunities that I had never even gotten. And then they offer me those opportunities. It was like a circle of life, right?
Yeah.
Right. In fact, it's kind of happened with this job. Not to say that my art director was my student. We were both coworkers, but like I taught a class at Blizzard. He took that class, and he told me when we were talking a few weeks ago that he learned so much from that class. You know,
Hmm.
he learned like a tremendous amount from that class, right?
Yeah.
That has stuck with him, and now me and him are working together, and it looks like they're positioning me to be an assistant art director over the studio,
Oh, nice.
right? And then potentially move me to art director on the next project.
Yeah, I think one of my biggest things is um, more of like the connections um, type thing, but it is a bit
Absolutely.
difficult being all the way over here. Because I did genuinely look around to see if there's like any like art groups, any like, but it's more of that uh abstract traditional type art, which I kind of gave it a try. Yeah, but I was like, yeah, I just can't. um,
Let me put another side to you that you might not have considered.
mhm.
What's stopping you from making your own?
Hmm. Well, to me, I found myself, especially when I went to the first THU, because
Uh-huh.
at that point I was at a point where I was like, um, I was getting, you know how it is. Like I come from a Middle Eastern family, so my
Hmm.
parents are on that side of like. Now they're not as much because they've seen how miserable I was in my my normal job and all that, but um they're the type who are like, oh, you gotta like work and like be like a doctor, a
Sure.
pharmacist,
I
anything
get
like
it,
that.
man. I come
Uh,
from an Asian family.
yeah, but anyway, I was at the point where I was like, um, I'm not sure if this whole thing is for me, like going into concept art and illustration and stuff like that. So that was one of the things when you told me to go to THU. I was like, okay, I'm gonna give this a try and see how I feel. Like when I get back from this event, will it will I feel the urge to be like, okay, I want to continue with this,
Uh-huh.
um, or not? And so I remember I actually, on top of going there, I signed up for. They had this 3-day event where people who worked in the industry. Um, I actually got I can't. I'm sorry if I can remember Justin, but I can't remember his last name. He has his own like company where he does modeling and stuff like that. And Joffrey, who worked at Riot Games, so they would have people who worked in the industry as like the art directors, and then within 3 days, each group would make. Their own video game basically on that. And I was like, okay, let me join this whole event thing and see how I feel going through that, because what they were saying, it was like an actual pipeline, and this is how, like, if you actually worked in a studio, how it would go around. um, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna give it a try, and I enjoyed it immensely. Like, it was crazy. I walked out and I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. I want to work in this industry. And I've had, like, even after that, I've had like my ups and downs, but if I each time I find myself in front of the computer again, painting, drawing. So I'm like, I know this is what I want. Is just, how do I get there? Like, everyone keeps telling me, yeah, it's always the hardest is just getting your foot in the door, and then after that, if you're genuinely like work hard and all that and like make those connections, it gets um it gets a little bit easier to
Gets a lot
find your
easier. It's
so
exponential.
yeah, so it's just that one like push through the door that I'm trying to get. And yeah, like I'm not saying that like, oh, I'm entitled. I've been doing this for all these years. Like I deserve to be, because no, because I've
Yeah.
if I did, I would already be working. Um, but at the same time, like I've seen people who were, I feel like they were a little bit less or like behind me that actually already got ahead, and so I'm like trying to think
Sure.
like, oh, I'm doing something, there's something wrong that I'm clearly doing, so I'm just trying to figure that out.
I just told you, right? It's
Yeah.
yeah, and here's the thing, man. Like when you say, am I doing something wrong? Like, why are these guys doing something? And I'm like, I feel like I'm a little bit more qualified. That may well be true. All that should be is vindication,
Mhm.
uh, not anything other than that. Because what ends up happening is that you start to create. It's like what I was saying earlier about, you know, having these false expectations. You'll get disappointed more often.
Mhm.
Um, Yeah, see the problem with entitlement, right? Like you're claiming that you don't have this. But let's just talk about entitlement in its entirety. The problem with entitlement is that it makes people think that they deserve something that they may actually not deserve. This is why we really appreciate those who are humble and get the things that they deserve. There's something about psychologically that we really like about people who are humble,
Yeah.
right? And there's something about like not liking those who are entitled. And I think it has something to do with fairness, right?
Mhm.
But like I said, if you just have a default stance that the world is not fair, right?
Yeah.
Then you're not going to get discouraged if one person's doing better than you
Mhm.
at all. At least you shouldn't be, because you're like, yeah, that's just how it is.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that I think is really like mind-boggling is that whenever people recognize that things aren't fair, they focus on that, right?
Yeah.
Like they focus on the unfairness, and they tend to lose track of what is fair, what is available to them. And this is where you start to think of things like gratitude.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, you should start thinking like count your blessings. This is why people who are religious, who at least practice religion in the right way, right? The ones that
Mhm.
speak of
Yeah.
being good to one another, not the kind that use it against
Mhm.
others. And
Mhm.
this goes all across the world. I'm not just talking about here in the States. Um, but if you look at people who are like, like I'm sure these individuals who are like well-adjusted theists, right? People who love some sort of God, but they're also really good people. It's what you would imagine, like for instance, like a Christian, like a good Christian would be. Like this is what they would do. I'm sure you know people like this, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I do for sure. Like one of my best friends is this.
Mhm.
I remember one time he said to me, like, um, like I don't approve of gay marriage, right? I'm not for it. Like it's against my religion. But I would like to say though that if I saw a bunch of people beating up a gay person or preventing them from getting married or doing that, like actually going out of their way to do that, like in fact, like enacting laws and all stuff, like I feel like that's also like immoral.
Mhm.
They deserve the right to be happy. And I was like, that's why you're one of the good ones, even though you like just said you started off with something that was clearly like problematic to me, but it's not so much a problem to me because of the way your actions. Like you don't vote on this type of stuff, you don't act on it. You just like complain about it online, and that's kind of fine. But I was like, but I also try to argue with him, like, but some people don't think that way, and they use that very thing that you're saying, and
Yeah.
act on it, and it's kind of the problem. But
Mhm.
the point I'm making is the good ones, like him, for instance. One thing that I know about him is he prays, right? He prays all the time. And every day he reminds himself with his prayers what he should be happy for, right?
Mhm.
That's kind of what the point of prayer is to be thankful.
Yeah.
Even when he talks about Jesus, and let's be clear, I'm not religious at all. Um, but he is. And the way he talks about Jesus, he talks about like, I'm grateful of all the things he's done for me, you know?
Mhm.
Uh, it's because of him that I'm good. I
Yeah.
do what I do not because I'm going to go to heaven, not because of this, not because of that. I'm grateful for the that he gave me this life, and I'm like, yeah, that's a really great way of thinking about it. So
Yeah.
really, it's a very progressive way of thinking about. Has a very positive outlook on religion and God, what God means to him.
Mhm.
I have the same sentiment. I just don't have God. I'm just like, my sentiment is being negative all the time is inefficient use of your time. It's
Yeah.
very mathematical, right? Very logical. It's like logically not smart to be so down on yourself, right?
Yeah.
And so coming full circle to really help you out with this question, so we can take on some other questions,
Mhm.
is that you're not wrong. All these circumstances and hurdles are in your way. I believe you. But the question isn't so much that these hurdles are there. What can you do about them? The question is, what's the next steps? And I just want to say, you are doing it. You're actually doing the things that you're supposed to doing. I'm giving you hindsight because I've already experienced this.
Mhm.
You are doing it. If you can't find groups online, make your own group. I've done that. I've done
Okay.
that plenty of times. If there's no sketch groups, make your own sketch groups. I've done that plenty of time.
Mhm.
If there's no online or there's no event, find online events. Make your own. I remember I had a student who was from Toronto, and he was like, there's no events in Toronto. I was like, make it, and he did. Him and his classmate. That's what Edge Control came from,
Oh,
over in
yeah.
Toronto.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, there was none, and then they made it.
Okay.
It
Yeah.
was really that simple. They were like, "Oh, wait, what? We can't?" I was like, "Yeah, dude," and they did, and it was great.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure.
And so I'm trying to make this point to you is like that's really what it's about, man. You know.
Mhm.
And so like you're on the right track. Like if you're looking for an answer that might have helped you move the dial, the dial a little bit. Um,
Uh,
there isn't anything because you're doing it already.
yeah,
Um,
I think it's because sometimes it gets a little bit frustrating. It's just I need to hear it again.
yeah,
But
I will say, like, just to give you even more comfort, I've been rejected hundreds of times,
yeah,
hundreds and hundreds. And the if you really think about like the kind of individual I am, right? Think about it. Do you think that bothered me?
probably not.
Yeah, no, almost certainly it bothered me on like a surface level, but do you think I was just like, oh
Yeah.
well?
Yeah.
Uh, I will say that I don't think I ask these types of questions either, to
Mm.
be clear. Like, I don't think I remember asking, um, how do I get into an industry? Uh, if I did, I just don't remember,
Mm.
you know? I think it was more of like, I was just like thinking it to myself and then immediately tried something. And
I
then
think
I think what's important about that is that I'm always leading with action, not looking at what's slowing me down, right? Like I'm not like focused on what's slowing me down. I'm focused on what can then accelerate me. And I think you're doing that right now. Like it's happening, you know?
y- yeah, I think it's because I still have that mentality of because I'm from the academic side is like, oh, you study, you do this, you get a degree, you
Yeah,
get it.
it's
It's more likely
very,
for you to get a job.
yeah, it's like step by step. Yeah.
Yeah, and even I noticed this even in my artwork is like, okay, it's like thumbnail, concept, line art,
Yeah.
colors, all this stuff because to me, I I prefer a more something stable, like something guaranteed compared to being like, oh, I'm just gonna like paint something random and like do it all on one
Well,
layer.
yeah, and let's just settle on this. I'm the same way.
Mhm.
I don't think that that's what I'm saying too. I'm not saying that it's super organic. I'm saying that there is steps, and these are the steps. I'm saying the things that are really hard to put a finger on is the things that we just talked about, like
Yeah.
getting hired, emailing the right people.
Hmm.
But what you can do, and you've done it already, where you went to an event and you've already been convinced that this is a great strategy. I told
Yeah.
you it was, not because of any other reason, that it is. It just is the thing.
Yeah.
And it's like what I was talking to Holden about. And sometimes people are expecting something else.
Hmm.
The reason why you're feeling like this, I'm telling you, is you're driven by insecurities, and you should stop there.
Hmm.
And it's okay to have them, but you just recognize that that's what's happening. That's it. And once you
Yeah.
recognize it, you're, oh yeah, like I'm totally like kind of getting my own way a little bit. And I understand those insecurities. I sympathize with them. I get why you have them because it's so uncertain. But I'm trying to tell you, like, trust me, high quality work and putting it out there, making friends, like talking to people all the time. So my friend just got a job at this new studio. They were like multi-billion-dollar studio. They're just starting out. He said, yeah, he was probably going to see if I can get the job there too, if I wanted to, if I wanted to leave Nexon. And I said the same back to him, you know, like that's like a real thing, dude. I'm trying to tell you,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
There it is.
um, and the people that he's worked with, I know two of them. So I know it'd be pretty easy. The reason I even have the Nexon job is from the guy I worked with at Blizzard, Ryan Metcalf. We're buds.
Yeah.
You know the artist Tyson Murphy?
Um, Not sure if I see his work, I'll probably
Oh,
know.
okay. Well, Tyson Murphy, he works at Riot. He's an art director over at Art Riot.
Yeah.
Our daughters are best friends.
Oh wow.
We're gonna go on a picnic on Sunday. You know
Hey,
what I mean?
yeah.
Like it's
Hey,
like
showing
I'm
people
being
out.
serious. Like that's the
Cool.
kind of stuff that matters.
Yeah.
And people like to work with people that they like. So if you are in those circles, when you start becoming good, it's not a question if you can get that job anymore.
Hmm.
Because people will be like, "Yeah, I love this guy. You bring it in." It's really that simple.
Yeah.
And that's why I was saying it's actually becomes exponential. And that's the reason why it becomes exponential. You become more friend. You get more and more friends. You go to industry parties. You make more friends there. You start to be respected online because you have good work, and then so forth and so on and so on and so forth. You see what I'm saying? And all of a sudden, you don't even have to try to look for work. People are coming to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Um, just to mention something about that, just a funny segue. I actually got to meet you, Anthony, at Lightbox, and that was
Yeah.
like my first convention ever. And I asked you a similar question, like at your booth, and you pretty much answered it just that way, just making connection to friends. So it's so funny to hear that full circle. But with that story, though, it was funny between my friends and I. We were all planning a big road trip down to California, and then I heard about the news about Lightbox. And I was just like, you know what? Like, this is just something that I feel like I need to do. So I told my friends, I was like, sorry, guys, like, I'm going to put my money towards this. And I had the best time ever. And like, I am so geared to go back. And that was my first convention that I ever got to go to. And I was just jazzed about it. So yeah, as somebody that's gone for like the first time, I highly recommend it.
My plan
Um,
this year.
yeah. And a question I wanted to ask you, Anthony,
Oh,
I was,
segue.
yeah. I just wanted to ask you if there would be an opportunity at all, just because you got to see a lot of our process and our work and stuff, if we could share just kind of this body of work that we have so far, and maybe just give some insight of kind of like what direction and what we can kind of work towards for the future, like after the class is over. would that be something you would be open to?
Yeah, that reminds me. I have to check the other kid, like the people's portfolios, other kids. I heard my kids. That's probably why I said it. They're like all screaming. They're not kids. They're all grown adults. I need to get to that though. Yeah, of course.
Cool. Okay, cool.
We'll set it up for next week. We'll make sure that I do it.
Sure. It's just I feel like you have a better grasp of, say, if I just give it to a random person, of just kind of our workflows and stuff.
Yeah, I am definitely not just a random person. This is
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Are there any other questions before we continue? I'm sure there is. Yes. Brad.
Oh, I'm not muted. Okay. So this may be coming from insecurities.
Oh, so you're already
don't know
giving
how
yourself
to-
good advice already. You're already learning. You're like, I might already be insecure. And it might be the truth. I'll just tell you if it is. Go ahead. Sorry.
I want to look for work,
Uh-huh.
but there are places where I would like to apply, but I am not there.
Uh-huh.
Like, I don't know any other areas for work other than I think Rockstar is in New York.
Uh-huh.
But,
It is. But don't work for
what are
Rockstar,
there
by the way.
other? I've heard the news. So
And
I'm
it's
like,
true. It's all true.
Oh,
there
that's
are other places I want to work, but it's
Uh-huh.
like I don't want to leave my boyfriend. But it's also like I spoke to him and he's
That's
like,
funny.
yeah, I would be sad if you were to move over. But it's also like when
Well,
you are
here,
about to start a family, it's like, oh well, do you just try to find something where like your wife or a husband or whatever their job can go to, because his job is not like he can't move to another area over there because um there is no corporate place there for him, and the only place that's close is like in another state. And
got it.
would you consider that moving to another place just because of a job, or like is there a
Yeah, I would say if you really care for this individual, don't move if it's going to be a huge burden. And the reason why is because, and this is just becoming a reality, a lot of studios are realizing, especially what you or the kind of job that you're doing, can be done remote. There's actually no reason to sacrifice,
I was very
location.
I
So
was
that's the good
confused
news.
on why there wasn't like remote. So
Because people are dumb,
okay.
And so it's actually the other way around. It's not your insecurities, it's other people's insecurities. They think that if they're not in an office sitting in a room working, that they're going to like slack off. It's the same argument of like, oh, we're going to give people money, $1,000 a month, and they're just going to waste it on drugs. It's like, bro, people take drugs because they fucking hate life. Like, you know what my son did with his stimulus check that he got from the corona?
Oh no.
Drugs. No, just kidding. he bought it. He bought a class online and he bought a new laptop.
Oh,
Nice.
nice.
Of course he's going to do stuff like that. He couldn't afford it before. Like,
yeah.
this is the very thing that like supports the basic income. I have a lot of friends who are like, they're like, oh, I'm going to go buy my kids new clothes. Yeah, you are. Guess what? Like, my wife, we are wealthy. Me and my wife, my family, right? We have money. It feels like we're poor because we live in Irvine, but we definitely are not poor, right? If we moved to anywhere else, we would be rich. I'm in the 30%. I'm like in the higher bracket, In fact, we've actually talked about like moving to like Nicaragua. I mean, it's like that scene from Europe Trip where like they tip the hotel person, the busboy, like 5 cents or something, like a penny, And then he turned around and he slapped the hotel owner. He's like, I'm starting my own hotel. Because like I guess like the exchange rate is so dramatic. Anyway, that's kind of like true though. I remember when I went to Croatia, like buying shots for all the people there, it was like 30 or 40 people. It only cost me $50.
Wow.
And I was like, dude, that's like lunch for my family, like half a lunch. It cost me $100 to eat out here in Irvine.
Oh,
Just to eat out, like to buy lunch for my big ass family. Okay.
Dang.
But anyway, so we got a check too. I was like, what? Why is he sending us money? Right? I was like, this is clearly idiocracy. Because obviously I'm a big fan of the Universal, and I should be getting it because that's the whole point of Universal.
mhm.
But this is a little different. There are very specific places that probably could use this money. Small businesses, for example, right?
Yeah.
Like not people, not individuals. I think that should be universal, but there's a different kind of problem happening where businesses are shutting down and are not able to keep their employees working and paid, right? You should be able to get paid on top of getting a universal check anyway. But my wife, guess what she did with all that money? Bought clothes for my kids. Bought them clothes for the summer. Got them all new shoes, new pants. Because like if you have kids, you'll find that kids grow, and as
Yes,
they
I've
grow,
taken care of many. They grow too fast.
yeah, they grow, and they grow out of all the clothes you just bought them last month.
Yep.
Thing. And so so that's what we did with it. We didn't use it on anything else. And a lot of people will do that. And of course, you're going to have people that are like, tight, I'm going to buy a lot of drugs. But those people are in the vast minority, right?
Mhm.
Yep.
You know, we don't have a majority of poor people, all right? We have a lot of people who are, I'm sorry, not poor people. We don't have a majority of crack addict poor people, right? Like really, really, you know, desperately and violently homeless people, right? But even those individuals, like I said earlier, do the very thing that people are afraid they're going to do because they're trying to escape. There's a reason why rehab doesn't work. And in most cases, it's because what ends up happening is you go to rehab and it works, right? What? You just said it doesn't work. It works. But when you leave, where do you go?
Back to where you were, and then it's another cycle.
And guess what? You were on drugs because you were back where you were, which was terrible. You had an abusive family, you had like impoverished lifestyle, right? And then you're back to your old ways. So it's clear to me the way you fix that drug addict problem is give people a reason not to be drug addicts. All right. Like the drug addicts here in Irvine are just kids who take like ecstasy when they go to raves. You know, like, okay, they're all right, dude. You know, you're going to have a couple of OD people once in a while. It's going to be sad, right? You're going to have several dozen teenagers drinking and driving, which is also very sad and dangerous and irresponsible. But those are changeable circumstances that they could make a choice and then their lives will be dramatically better with a simple choice, you know?
Mhm.
People who are impoverished can't just, oh, you know what? I'm just now going to work hard and everything's going to work out, right? Like their circumstances, even when they work all their lives as hard as they possibly can still be stuck in this problem, you know? Anyway, moral of the story, though, is that, you know, I think with all the stuff that's going on, you could totally do it. You could totally work remote. You just have to start to build your strategy for the lifestyle that you want to lead, right?
Mhm.
You got to design around that now. That's all I'm getting at. Okay.
Okay.
Bobby Chiu, one of the most famous illustrators in our industry, it's exactly what he did. He literally was like, I love Toronto. I'm not moving out of here. All the best companies are in California. Yeah, I don't care. And he did that. No, seriously, he did it. And I remember like Tim Burton and all those people were like, because he worked with them on some of the Tim Burton films. They're like, oh no, we really want you there. Tim really feels like he needs you in here, like so he could talk to you directly, right? And he was just like, no, let me just like work for a week, and if it doesn't work out, I promise I'll go out there then, you know. And they're like, okay, and he did that for a week, and they're like, oh, this is actually fine. You know, he's like, all right, cool, so I'm just gonna keep doing that. So he just made sure he was accountable to that like standard, and he did. And then he started getting acclaim, and then that acclaim led to more work, and that more work led to the legacy that he's building now, where he eventually created Lightbox, one of the biggest art industry things out there now. You know what I mean?
Even corporate stuff, because of this whole COVID thing now, they're like starting to reevaluate like people instead just work from home because it's a lot cheaper for the
Yeah.
companies.
And by the way, as a consequence of that, I'm glad you brought that up. Is corporations also realize they don't need people. Like they can work on a lower capacity, which is more reason why we need a universal income. They didn't realize how much of this could be automated, and you only need a couple key players and get rid of the rest. You really start to recognize the people who are actually doing work, you know, when they're not just in the office and you're just looking at them. That's what's actually happening with the game studios too. Like, a lot of people are finding that they're more productive when they're not like in an office. And the first day that I started, they were like, yeah, like, can you give us advice on like working from home, because we're freaking out. I was like, no, actually people work better from home. It's actually a myth that they don't. And then I was also saying to them, like, you know, something to consider is that, like, the reason why it's easier to work from home is specifically because you don't have small talk. Like, small talk actually takes a lot of time. Like, people don't realize it. Like, you just kind of focus. But another consequence is that you don't ever leave work. That's another problem. Like, you just never leave. So the people who are hardworking just work double, right?
Yeah.
But like I said, you also find those who are just not that, who take advantage of that. Like, and it's easier. It's easier to spot because you're checking in more often, right? Because you don't see them at their desk, so you don't like. So there's this extra element of like, okay, what did everyone do today? Because we got to make sure that people discipline, because everyone's like, I can't see you, you know. And it's like, oh, this person didn't do anything since the last 4 hours, you know. That starts to become more noticeable versus we're like, well, we'll meet at the end of the week. And then people just kind of just sit around doing nothing for like 4 or 5 days. And then the last day they start working. Very much the same thing that they did when they were in high school or in college. But when you're like, your bosses are freaking out because they're like, oh no, we got to make sure everyone's working, so we got to check in more often. That's when they start catching those who actually don't really fucking do anything.
Yeah.
You know, which is unfortunate because I don't want people to be out of the job because we don't have a system to catch them. You know, so it sucks. It's like a hard lesson to learn. You know.
Yeah.
And some people stick the landing, and others, you know, do not. Anyway, yeah, that's my advice to you, homie. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. Like, you have the one of the very few careers, and even to what was said earlier, like corporate starting to reevaluate the same thing. Art has always been there for like a long ass time, especially digital art.
Yep.
So I have a question, if we have
Okay,
time.
this will be the last one because we are out of time.
Yeah. This is a pretty hard question, at least I perceive it as. So I'm in Australia, yeah, and the games industry over here is much more like mobile stuff. And there's not much 2D art. And I'm currently in uni to like get my degree because I know I need it for a visa.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I was just wondering, should I, after the degree, should I just get a 3D art job, or would it be better for me to like continue working towards 2D just full time, and then like aiming towards right?
I always tell people they should do what they want to do. So if you want to be a 2D artist working for Riot, then that's what you should do. Even if you don't get a job at Riot, you might
Yeah.
get a job adjacent to Riot. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, like a company that's like it. And they might
Yeah.
not be a big company too. Like the company that my friend is working at now, that I was just talking to you about, is a mobile company that makes games that look like Riot, because mobile games are actually starting to elevate in terms of their quality.
Yeah.
And that's what they're starting a new division, sort of stealing like AAA like individuals like my friend, you know, to
Yeah.
start making AAA looking games on mobile. It's already kind of happening. And so you just need a portfolio like that. Like we
Yeah.
review portfolios at my studio, and it's I'm telling you, man, it's not a mystery what companies look for. Like my buddies, like we need this type of artist.
Yeah.
We just go on ArtStation and we just try to find it. It's really simple, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't know what else to say. You know, it's like that's what
Yeah.
needs to be done. And so to that thought, you need to have the kind of portfolio. Usually the problem isn't so much that there's a lot of competition. The problem is that there's not a lot of people that are very like the ones that you are like people are looking for, these smaller studios are looking for. A lot of the people that they want are just already working. So if they can find somebody that does the thing that, like Riot, for instance,
Yeah.
like let's say they find your work and it's just exactly what they're looking for, then you're going to get hired by these individuals.
Yeah.
But that's also like what I was talking to Haith about. Like it's also part of your job to kind of like find where these studios are at.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's actually
Yeah.
it's actually smart, in my opinion, to just kind of like make artwork that you want to do. And it's also very smart to pay attention to the market and be very pragmatic. So for instance,
Yeah.
is there a need for stylized art stuff that like Riot would do? And the answer is obviously yes. You know?
Yeah.
Is there a need for like realistic, like Call of Duty type artwork? Probably not as much, right?
Hmm.
So you would have to like adjust accordingly. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Like think in these terms, and you'll do better
Yeah. It's just
when
a
you're
question
building
that's
your
been,
portfolio.
yeah, it's just a question that's been on my mind, because I'm all the way in Australia, so it's like I know that it's gonna take a bit more time to actually get to like Riot Games level.
Yeah.
Just thinking like, yeah, about being pragmatic and stuff, like how realistic should I be, or how like hardcore chase my dream should I be?
Yeah,
That's
just be very smart about it. Yeah, just
Yeah.
see if there's a need for the very art you're trying to do. And and from what you told me, absolutely. You know, like absolutely, there's an absolute need for what you do. You know,
Yeah.
it's not foolish. I get like the fear of like, oh no, chase my dreams. Like it sounds super cheesy. I'm afraid like if I do that,
Yeah.
it's like a literally like a from a movie.
Mm.
And because it's from a movie, it's like it's not based off of any reality. So there's this fear of like that's true.
Mm.
But the way that I like to think about it is just look at the world and see what's actually true, you know, and see if there's examples of the kinds of work that you would like to do. And
Yeah.
if people hire those people. And the answer to that question, I already gave it to you. Like it's yes, this is very true.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, you'll be all right, man. I think you'll be okay.
Thanks.
I get it. It's frightening. And I don't think it's going to be going anywhere anytime soon either. The things that I don't teach people anymore, or I try to tell people to don't do, is realistic stuff. Specifically, like very, very, very realistic, like photorealism people.
Yeah.
Like, there's no need to like design a photorealistic person, right?
Yeah.
Because you could just scan people. You know, that used to be a thing. Like you needed to design like a person,
Yeah.
right? Because you would put it into the game, whatever, and you needed to give that to a model, or a model would have to make it. You know, like photos aren't enough. Like you couldn't get like photos of the right kind of actor in the right positions, and plus you want to kind of evolve that. But now you can probably just get any actor and just distort it, and it'll be fine.
Yeah, photogrammetry.
Yeah. Like even what I'm doing here might fall into that category, right? Because it's relatively realistic, but it's also clearly not, right? I'm like designing a costume and proportions that are slightly skewed, you know?
Yeah.
This has value more than just if I were to just draw like a regular person standing still. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to just do this type of art. In fact, I'm very well known for this specific style. And then because I'm changing my portfolio to be mostly people of color, specifically Africans, right?
Yeah.
I thought I would just revisit that style, just with a new cast of individuals.
I actually really love this stuff.
Yes, so do I.
Yeah,
super
it's
iconic.
my most popular. It's what I'm known for. So I thought, it might be cool to revisit this, but then just change the cast of individuals. Just change them. Just redo them all. Or not redo them, but just make like a whole new library of this stuff.
Yeah. Oh, here's a really quick question. What do you think people are drawn to with this particular style? What do you think makes it effective?
I'm sorry, say it again?
What do you think makes this particular style effective?
This style?
Yeah.
What I'm doing right now, right in front of you?
Yeah.
What makes it effective? Is that what I heard?
Like why do you think that people are drawn to this particular style?
Oh, it's actually pretty simple. It's because it's very, very clear. Clarity is like all the things I teach about, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what do I mean by clear? You know that there's a person, and you know she's wearing like some sort of dress, and you know she's covered in ornaments, and you know that she's posed in a very, contraposy? I forget the
contrapposte, I think, something. Yeah.
Contrapasta?
Contrapasto.
Yeah.
Delicious.
Yeah. Contrapasta. Yeah. You get it though, right? What I'm saying, like it's I always forget the term, man. But that's what I'm doing. It's doing a little bit of that. And what's cool is that like that kind of stuff really resonates with people, because it's that stuff that there's a lot of familiar elements here. And then I always add something that's just like little off the wall, and it's this abstract shape. It's like modern art. But the thing about this is that it still has artistic aesthetics to it. Yeah. And all of her jewelry, all of her ornaments, her outfit, all this stuff is, again, just adding more to that. That's why it works and will always work. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. That was actually useful. I see.
Yeah. So, like, I know this will do well. I know people are going to be like, whoa, tight. Yeah, it's because of all those reasons. It's a very visceral image. It has all the pieces lined up properly. And, or at least most of them. And because of that, people react very positive to this imagery. Yeah. To me, it's like I've done it so long. I did, like a long time ago, I did like a lot of images like this because I liked it. It's like a lot of fun. But I just, just like any other artist, I just got bored and just started doing other stuff, which is normal. Yeah. But this never went away. It's not like, oh, I can't do this anymore. That's why I always tell people, put your abilities in your skills, not in your tools. Because I've been doing a lot of 3D and all that stuff. People might have forgotten that I know how to paint. And so I was like, no, I definitely have not forgotten. I just learning other stuff. And it's funny because even when I was painting this head, because I've been sculpting heads more, I have like even more 3-dimensional knowledge of how to like construct a head in 2D.
Yeah.
because I'm like doing it in 3D is much more challenging. Fair. Cool beans. Thanks for all the great questions, you guys. Hope you guys do well this weekend. Have a good time. Don't be strangers, and be safe. And I'll talk to you guys next week.
Thanks for your
Yeah,
time.
man.
Sounds
Thank you.
good. Thank you so much.
Night.
See
See
ya.
ya.
See
Good
you
night,
guys.
Cheers.
Take care.
Thank you for watching this video. I appreciate it. Please subscribe to watch more in the future. If you like the video, I would appreciate a thumbs up. If you like this content, you can go to my website, robotpencil.net, where you can find mentorships, tutorials, and a Patreon to get more exclusive content. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys in my next videos.